my financial background, I have 14 years experience in the corporate world. In that 14 years experience, I was fortunate enough to hold key positions in finance departments. One of them was being a project accountant for a large property company. The other was a financial controller for a property investment firm. And finally, I was the associate director of finance for a reputable charity in England and Wales. And in those three key positions, I either managed the finance department or assisted in managing the finance departments, and I helped implement the systems and procedures. That was my 14 years in the corporate world, and since then I have had 7 years experience working on personal finances and personal finance products. I had a desire to write this workbook when I spoke to people who read my first book, and they would say to me, "Neala, your book was so good, I enjoyed it." And I said, "So did you write your financial game plan?" They would say things like, "Well, no, I haven't written my financial game plan." "Why?" I would say. And they would say, "Well, I don't know where to start. I don't know what it looks like. And it just seems very daunting and complex, and so I never wrote it." And that was where the desire came from, to write the workbook so that I can bring a product that can help people simplify it, be able to start it, and to be able to make it easy and practical. For me, it's based on my personal journey. My husband and I, we got married about 12 years ago, and when we first got married, we actually sat down and we came up with a financial game plan ourselves. We discussed it, we strategized, and we realized that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and we needed to be able to transition in that. And so we wrote our financial game plan to help me transition from the corporate world into being a stay-at-home mom and to be able to start up my business. And if we hadn't had that financial game plan in place, I do not think I would have been able to transition so smoothly. Was there difficulties along the way? Yes, there was. But by having the financial game plan in place made the transition much more smoother than if we hadn't had those plans in place in the first place. And for me, because I realized from my own personal story the benefits that I have been able to reap from having a financial game plan, I now want to teach others to help them to be able to write their own financial game plan, because some people may want to transition, some people just simply want to get the best out of their money, and some people really just want to have peace of mind. And I think having a financial game plan can enable people to have that. We tackle financial planning from the very start. Now, I would love to use this analogy. You wouldn't go and buy a house if the foundation isn't solid. Why? Because you may have problems in the future. There's a possibility that there may be cracks in the home and makes it unstable to live in. Or it could be that with time you have to leave the house because it's going to have to be demolished. And so when a foundation is unstable, then you have a lot of problems associated with a house built on an unstable foundation. I believe the same principle applies to financial planning, personal financial planning, family financial planning. If there is not a right foundation in place, then there can possibly be cracks in your financial planning. There can be future problems. There can be mistakes and mishaps. And so if we tackle financial planning and get the foundations right and make sure that the foundation itself is sturdy, then any financial house you build on top of that will be sturdy and long-lasting. And that was one of the key reasons why I believe this book will benefit people. It will give them a solid foundation for their personal finances. I believe that when we look back in history, 30, 40 years ago, an average family or an individual would only have to deal with one bank statement. And so when it came to month end and for them to do their income and expenses, it wasn't difficult. They could sit down and they can easily do it, and it wouldn't have been stressful. It wouldn't have been something that they weren't looking forward to do. Let's fast forward that 30, 40 years later to today. The average family, the average individual may have 3, 4, 5 statements to look at, and that would include bank statements, joint bank accounts, individual bank accounts, credit card statements, and they may even be tapping into their overdraft facility. And now we are asking families to sit down, or individuals to sit down and plot this information from these different areas, different bank statements, and come up with an income and expenditure that is realistic and help them to know where they are at on a monthly basis. I believe many people find that very difficult, and they find it challenging. And so when it comes to doing that on a monthly basis, nobody really wants to face that. Why? Because it's so complex now. And I think that is one of the main challenges. I have realized that personal finances is not an easy topic for people to deal with. It's actually quite difficult because of the complexity of the society that we live in today. And there are people who are in debt and some who are in serious debt, and nobody wants to get into debt, but when you get into debt, it can suddenly escalate. And with that, you have situations where a lot of people do not know how to tackle their financial situation, how to get on top of it. And it's not just about tackling finances, but it's the emotions that are involved in tackling the finances. I don't think we could ever separate out the emotions from the finances. And for me, I have seen situations where people have been suicidal because they didn't know how to handle their debt. They felt embarrassed, they felt overwhelmed. I have seen fear. I even myself have experienced feeling ashamed with my own personal finances and being an accountant, and sometimes I didn't handle it well. So I believe that this toolkit will bring enlightenment to our journey, and it will help if you are in debt or if you are trying to get out of debt. It is going to help you on your journey towards debt freedom. And so that was one of the key reasons we wrote this workbook, was to tackle an area that is difficult and make it easy and simple. Now, the book isn't a debt management book, but what it will do is help people to know how to handle their finances well to get the best of it in the future, and it will give you hints and tips on how to strategize to be debt-free. This workbook I thought was going to be a very easy process. I thought I would write this workbook within 6 months and it would have been straightforward. Lo and behold, this workbook took me 3 long, hard years. And what I thought was so simple wasn't so simple. And I realize now why I haven't seen a workbook on the market like this before. I do not know if one exists, but I haven't come across one in my studies in finances. And I believe the reason why is it's not that easy to write, and you have to think it through quite logically in order for people to be able to get the best out of the workbook. And after the 3 long years of writing this workbook, I genuinely believe that I have nailed it and that I have been able to deliver a quality product to individuals and families that are jargon-free, practical, and user-friendly. And this, I believe, is what this workbook is going to do. Well, I'm really excited because I believe when somebody picks up this book and they open it, we get straight to the exercises. I've kept the book short and simple and jargon-free, financially jargon-free. And when you open up the book, we tackle, I believe, the most difficult chapter is chapter 1, and that's figuring out where you are now, your income and expenses. We tackle your income and expenses, and after we do that one particular exercise, I believe the book becomes much more enjoyable and easier. And so what we then do is we look at a cost reduction system, we look at your debt position, we look at your credit report, your credit history, and we pull that into a full statement. After that, we then look at possible cracks you can have in your financial planning and the strategies you can personally implement to avoid those cracks. And finally, we do look at you then, based on the information we've gathered now, how would you set realistic, smart goals that are achievable for 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years from now. So that is what this workbook is going to offer. And it's a place, this workbook, you're going to be able to write this information in one place, and you will have that full information in one book that you can keep and analyze 10 years from now and say, wow, this is my financial game plan this is it, and look at what I've been able to achieve. And so that is what I believe the person who picks up this book is going to get from it. I would say this workbook would benefit anybody who's looking to have a financial plan. It's for people who are looking to get the best out of their money. But I believe what this workbook would do, it would benefit the everyday person. It's a foundational financial book, but it shows you how to set the foundation properly. And that is the key about this workbook. It is a workbook that shows you setting the foundation of your financial house in a solid way, that anything you build on it will be stable and solid. And this is what I believe the workbook will help people with. I have been pleasantly surprised by what people's feedbacks have been. Some people have said this workbook has been a real blessing. Some people say they can't wait to start writing their own financial game plan in the workbook. Somebody actually said, finally, a workbook where I can put all the information in one place rather than have it in many different places. But one point I do remember, and this was from a lady who had seen the workbook, an older lady. She said she'd been to many finance seminars and visited many workshops, and she'd never come across a book like this, even though she was looking for it. She'd seen quite a few finance workbooks, but she felt when she looked at them that they were so complicated, they were so daunting, and it just turned her off because of the financial jargon in it, that when she saw this workbook, she realized she wanted a copy of it because it gave her everything she was looking for in a workbook. You can find more information about myself and the work that I do on whatsyourfinancialgameplan.com. There you would also be able to purchase the workbook, but you can also purchase the workbook on amazon.co.uk. On my website, whatsyourfinancialgameplan.com, I wanted to bring a website where I can journey with people and people can journey with me and with other people who are doing their financial planning journey, and we can be able to develop a website that brings useful hints, tips and personal stories on financial planning and see how people transition. I know there are many people who would want to transition in this journey. They may be in a job situation where they are not happy and they want to transition. There are some people, they just want to be able to spend more quality time with their children at home and they don't know how to get to that position. Now, I'm not saying that we can do that immediately, but what we can do is plan for it with the workbook and the other tools that we are looking to offer on the website and via blogs and video blogging also. So I really hope that people would join me on this journey and come along as we explore financial planning and as we try to get the best out of our money. And I think hearing other stories, that I would love people to tell me about their financial game plan stories and their journey. We're most welcome for it. So yes, join us on this journey of financial planning and gaining financial success.